Chapter 1, The Bargain. As the sun set on the small village of Havenwood, a young man named Jack made his way through the bustling market square, a basket of vegetables balanced on his arm. He was a plain-looking fellow, with brown hair and eyes, but he had a kind heart and a quick smile for everyone he met. But as he turned down a narrow alley, he was confronted by a figure that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a demon, its red skin glowing in the fading light and its horns curling upwards from its head. "What do you want?" Jack stuttered, trying to back away. The demon chuckled, a deep and guttural sound. "I have no interest in harming you, human," it said. "I have come to offer you a bargain." Jack's heart raced. He had heard tales of demons making deals with humans, always with disastrous consequences. But something about this demon's demeanor made him pause. "What kind of bargain?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I can give you anything you desire," the demon replied, its voice smooth and seductive. "Wealth, power, love, the choice is yours." Jack hesitated. He had always dreamed of a life beyond the poverty and hard work of the village, but he knew that deals with demons never ended well. I don't know," he stuttered. The demon cocked its head to the side, studying him. "You are a good man, Jack," it said. "I can sense it. And I believe that there is one thing you truly desire above all else." "What is it?" Jack asked, unable to keep the hope from his voice. The demon smiled. "Love," it said. "True, unending love. And I can give it to you." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had always longed for someone to share his life with, but the women in the village had always seemed shallow and petty to him. Could it be possible that this demon could offer him the love he had always desired? "How?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Marry me," the demon said, its voice soft and inviting. "Be mine, and I will love you until the end of time." Jack's mind raced. Could he really marry a demon? Could he really trust it to keep its promise? But as he looked into the demon's eyes, he saw a depth of emotion that he had never seen in another being. And in that moment, he knew that he was willing to take the risk. "Yes," he said, his voice firm. "I will marry you." The demon's smile broadened, and it took Jack's hand in its own. "Then let us seal our bargain with a kiss," it said, leaning in to brush its lips against Jack's. As they kissed, Jack felt a warmth spread through his body, a feeling of love and acceptance that he had never known before. He knew that he had made the right decision, and as the demon led him out of the alley and into the night, he knew that he was ready to face whatever challenges their love might bring. Chapter 2, The Wedding. As the days passed, Jack found himself increasingly entwined with the demon, whose name was revealed to be Lilith. He was surprised by how much they had in common, and how easily they fell into a routine together. Lilith proved to be a patient and loving partner, always eager to listen to Jack's thoughts and concerns and do everything in her power to make him happy. And as the two of them grew closer, Jack began to see past her demonic appearance and see the kind and compassionate person within. But despite the happiness he found with Lilith, Jack knew that their relationship would not be accepted by the people of Havenwood. Demons were feared and reviled by most humans, and the thought of a demon and a human marrying was unheard of. So, with Lilith's blessing, Jack decided to leave the village and start a new life elsewhere, where they could be together without fear of persecution. And as they packed their belongings and said goodbye to the only home Jack had ever known, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement for the adventures that lay ahead. The journey was long and hard, but Jack and Lilith were determined to reach their destination. They traveled through forests and mountains, braving storms and wild beasts, always with each other's love to keep them going. Finally, after many weeks of travel, they arrived at the city of Perdition, a place known for its tolerance of all kinds of beings. And it was there, in a small chapel on the outskirts of the city, that Jack and Lilith were married in a simple yet beautiful ceremony. As they exchanged vows, Jack knew that he had found the love he had always wanted, and that he was willing to face any challenge to keep it. And as they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, he knew that he would love Lilith until the end of time. Chapter 3, The Demon's Curse. As Jack and Lilith settled into their new life in perdition, they were surprised by how easily they were accepted by the diverse community. Despite Lilith's demonic appearance, no one seemed to discriminate against her or Jack because of it. They were happy, and Jack couldn't believe how lucky he was to have found such a perfect partner. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Jack began to notice a change in Lilith. She became distant and moody, snapping at Jack for no reason and disappearing for hours at a time. When he tried to talk to her about it, she brushed him off, saying that she just needed some space. Jack was heartbroken and confused. He had thought that their love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle, but now he wasn't so sure. And as the rift between them grew wider, he began to fear that he had made a mistake by marrying Lilith. One night, as Jack lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Lilith finally confided in him. "I have a curse upon me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A curse that will soon consume me completely, and there is nothing I can do to stop it." "What do you mean?" Jack asked, his heart racing. "I am a demon, and as such, I am bound by certain laws," Lilith said. "One of those laws is that I am forbidden from loving a mortal. And yet, I have done just that, and now the consequences are catching up to me." Tears sprang to Jack's eyes as he listened to Lilith's confession. "Is there nothing we can do?" he asked, his voice shaking. "There is one way," Lilith said. "But it is a risky and dangerous path, and I fear it may cost us everything." "What is it?" Jack asked, his heart pounding. "We must seek out the great mother of all demons, and plead with her to lift the curse," Lilith said. "But she is a powerful and unpredictable being, and there is no guarantee that she will listen to us." Jack was silent for a moment, considering Lilith's words. The thought of facing such a powerful and potentially dangerous being was terrifying, but he knew that he couldn't bear to lose Lilith. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," he said, taking Lilith's hand in his own. "We'll do this together." Lilith squeezed Jack's hand, a tear rolling down her cheek. "Thank you," she said. "I knew I could count on you." As they made their plans to set out on their quest, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. He knew that the road ahead would be hard and dangerous, but he also knew that he would do anything to save his beloved Lilith. Chapter 4, The Journey. The journey to the Great Mother's realm was long and treacherous, taking Jack and Lilith through dark forests, scorching deserts, and icy mountains. They encountered all manner of dangers along the way, from bandits and wild beasts to treacherous storms and treacherous terrain. But despite the challenges they faced, Jack and Lilith never gave up. They were determined to save their love and overcome the curse that threatened to tear them apart. As they journeyed on, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the strange and wondrous sights he saw. He had never left the small village of Havenwood before, and the wide world was full of wonders he had never imagined. But even as he marveled at the beauty around him, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He would catch glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corner of his eye, or feel a presence hovering just beyond his reach. Lilith seemed to sense it as well, and she grew increasingly tense as they neared the Great Mother's realm. "We must be careful," she warned Jack. "The Great Mother's minions are everywhere, and they will stop at nothing to keep us from reaching her." Jack nodded, his heart racing. He knew that they were in great danger, but he also knew that he would do anything to save Lilith. As they approached the Great Mother's realm, they were confronted by a group of demonic soldiers, their red skin and horns marking them as the Great Mother's loyal followers. "Halt, mortals," the leader of the group said, brandishing a wicked-looking spear. "You are not welcome here." Lilith stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "We have come to plead with the Great Mother to lift the curse upon me," she said, her voice firm. "We mean no harm and seek only her mercy." The leader of the group sneered. "The Great Mother shows no mercy," he said. "You would do well to turn back now, before it is too late." But Jack knew that they couldn't turn back. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We will not leave without her help," he said, his voice shaking. The leader of the group considered Jack for a moment, then barked an order to his minions. "Take them to the Great Mother," he said. "She will decide their fate." As they were led into the Great Mother's realm, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. He knew that they were at the mercy of a powerful and unpredictable being, and he feared that their quest might end in disaster. But as he looked at Lilith, he knew that he would do anything to save her, even if it meant facing the Great Mother herself. The end. Chapter 5, The Great Mother. As Jack and Lilith were led into the Great Mother's throne room, they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the grandeur of the place. The room was vast and ornate, with marble columns and gold-plated walls. At the far end of the room, on a throne of diamonds and rubies, sat the Great Mother herself. She was a majestic figure, with long black hair and piercing green eyes. Her skin was pale as snow, and her wings, shimmering like gold, spread out behind her. She exuded an aura of power and authority, and Jack couldn't help but feel small and insignificant in her presence. The Great Mother's minions led Jack and Lilith to the foot of the throne, then stepped back, bowing their heads in deference. "Great Mother," Lilith said, her voice shaking. "We come before you to plead for your mercy. I, a demon, have fallen in love with a mortal, and now the curse that has been placed upon me threatens to consume me completely. Please, I beg of you, lift this curse and allow me to be with the one I love." The Great Mother regarded Lilith with an impassive gaze, then turned her eyes to Jack. "And what of you, mortal?" she asked. "Do you truly love this demon?" "Yes," Jack said, his voice strong. "I love Lilith with all my heart, and I would do anything to be with her." The Great Mother considered their words for a moment, then spoke. "Love is a rare and precious thing, to be cherished and nurtured," she said. "But it is also a dangerous and unpredictable force, one that can bring great joy or great pain. And when it crosses the boundaries of species, it can be especially dangerous." She paused, then continued. "However, I see the sincerity in your hearts, and I am willing to lift the curse upon Lilith. But know this, if you choose to be together, you will face many challenges and obstacles. You will be shunned by your own kind, and you may even face persecution. But if you are willing to face these challenges and overcome them, then your love may thrive." Jack and Lilith looked at each other, tears in their eyes. They had never expected to receive such a generous gift, and they knew that it came with great responsibility. "We are willing," Jack said, taking Lilith's hand in his own. "We will face any challenge together, as long as we have each other." The Great Mother nodded, a smile on her lips. "Then go forth, and may your love be strong enough to overcome all obstacles," she said. "But know that I will always be watching, and if you stray from the path of love, the curse will be reinstated." As Jack and Lilith left the Great Mother's throne room, they knew that they had a long and difficult road ahead of them. But they also knew that they had each other, and that was all they needed. The end. Chapter 6, The Gates of Hell. After their encounter with the Great Mother, Jack and Lilith returned to the mortal realm, their hearts filled with hope and determination. They knew that they would face many challenges as a demon and a mortal in love, but they were ready to face them together. For a time, things seemed to be going well. They settled in a small town on the outskirts of perdition, and while they faced some discrimination and misunderstanding from the locals, they were generally able to live a happy and peaceful life. But as the months passed, Jack began to sense a presence watching them from the shadows. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and he grew increasingly paranoid and anxious. Lilith seemed to sense his unease and did her best to reassure him, but even she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. One night, as Jack was returning home from the market, he was ambushed by a group of demons. They were led by a tall, imposing figure with dark red skin and horns that curled like a ram's. "Crowley," Lilith hissed as she recognized her brother. Crowley sneered at his sister. "You should have known better than to defy our laws and fall in love with a mortal," he spat. "You are a disgrace to our kind, and now you must pay the price." He gestured to his minions, who seized Jack and dragged him away, despite Lilith's protests. As Jack was taken away, he couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. He had always known that their love would be met with resistance, but he had never imagined that it would come to this. Lilith was heartbroken as she watched her brother and his minions vanish into the darkness with Jack. She knew that she had to do something to save him, but she also knew that as a demon who had fallen in love with a mortal, she was forbidden from entering the gates of hell. But despite the risk, Lilith knew that she had to try. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Jack, and she was determined to do whatever it took to bring him back. So, with a heavy heart, Lilith set out on a journey to the gates of hell, determined to plead with the Great Mother and beg for her help. She knew that it would be a difficult and dangerous journey, but she also knew that it was the only way to save the one she loved. Chapter 7, The Deal. Lilith knew that her journey to the gates of hell would not be easy. She was a demon who had fallen in love with a mortal, and as such, she was not welcome in the underworld. But she was determined to save Jack, and she was willing to do whatever it took. So, with a heavy heart, she made her way to the gates of hell, determined to plead with the Great Mother and beg for her help. As she approached the gates, she was confronted by a giant, horned demon with glowing red eyes. He was the gatekeeper of hell, and it was his job to keep those who were not welcome out. "What do you want, demon?" the gatekeeper growled. "You are not welcome here." Lilith took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I have come to plead for your help," she said, her voice shaking. "My brother, Crowley, has taken my mortal husband, Jack, to hell, and I must save him." The gatekeeper sneered. "Love is a weakness," he said. "And you are not welcome in hell because of it." Lilith knew that she had to do something to persuade the gatekeeper to let her in. She knew that she had something he wanted, something that she could use to her advantage. "I will give you something in exchange for your help," she said. Chapter 8, The Bargain. The gatekeeper of hell considered Lilith's offer for a moment, his glowing red eyes studying her intently. Finally, he spoke. "Very well," he said. "I will allow you to enter hell in exchange for 10 human souls. Bring them to me, and I will let you pass." Lilith nodded, her heart racing. She knew that what she was doing was dangerous and immoral, but she also knew that it was the only way to save Jack. Without a second thought, she turned and set out for the nearest cemetery. She knew that she could find the souls of the recently deceased there, and she was determined to collect as many as she could. As she prowled the graves, Lilith couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had never collected souls before, and the thought of stealing them from the dead made her stomach churn. But she pushed her doubts aside and focused on her goal. She knew that she had to be quick and stealthy, or she might be caught. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lilith had collected 10 souls. They shimmered in her hands like glowing orbs, and she knew that they were the key to her passage into hell. She returned to the gates of hell, the souls clutched tightly in her hand. The gatekeeper was waiting for her, his eyes fixed on the orbs of souls. "Here they are," Lilith said, holding out the souls. Now, let me pass. The gatekeeper nodded, a satisfied smile on his lips. He reached out and took the souls from Lilith, then stepped aside. You may pass, he said. But be warned, hell is a dangerous place, and you may not find what you seek. Lilith nodded, her heart racing. She knew that the gatekeeper was right, but she was determined to save Jack no matter what. Without a second thought, she stepped through the gates of hell and set out for Crowley's castle, determined to bring her beloved husband home. Chapter 9, The Castle of Hell. As Lilith made her way through the dark and twisted landscape of hell, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. She knew that she was entering a dangerous and treacherous place, and she had no idea what she might face. But she pushed her fears aside and focused on her goal. She had to save Jack, and she was determined to do whatever it took. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lilith arrived at Crowley's castle. It was a massive, imposing structure, surrounded by a moat of molten lava and guarded by a horde of demonic minions. Lilith knew that she had to be careful. She had faced Crowley before, and she knew that he was a formidable opponent. She drew her sword and advanced cautiously, her heart racing. As she approached the castle, she could hear Jack's screams echoing through the air. Lilith's heart clenched at the sound, and she knew that she had to act fast. She charged forward, her sword held high, and burst through the castle doors. Inside, she was confronted by a scene of horror. Jack was strapped to a table, his body covered in cuts and bruises. Crowley stood over him, a sadistic grin on his face as he wielded a sharpened blade. Lilith's rage boiled over at the sight, and she charged forward, her sword raised. Crowley turned to face her, his eyes blazing with hatred. You should have stayed out of this, sister, he snarled. You are not welcome here. Lilith didn't let his words deter her. She swung her sword at Crowley, determined to bring him down. But Crowley was a skilled fighter, and he was able to dodge her attacks with ease. He countered with a series of blows that sent Lilith stumbling backwards. Despite her best efforts, Lilith was no match for Crowley. He was too powerful, and she was eventually forced to retreat. As she stumbled out of the castle, battered and bruised, Lilith knew that she had failed. She had been unable to save Jack, and now he was lost to her forever. Tears streamed down her face as she stumbled through the dark and twisted landscape of hell, her heart heavy with grief and despair. Chapter 10, The Rescue. Lilith knew that she couldn't give up. She had to find a way to save Jack, no matter what. So, with a heavy heart, she made her way back to the gates of hell and set out for the Great Mother's realm. She knew that it would be a difficult and dangerous journey, but she was determined to plead with the Great Mother and beg for her help. As she approached the Great Mother's throne room, she was greeted by a group of demonic soldiers. They recognized Lilith and allowed her to pass, and she made her way to the foot of the throne. The Great Mother regarded Lilith with a sympathetic gaze as she approached. I see the pain in your eyes, Lilith, she said. What brings you back to me? Lilith knelt before the Great Mother, tears streaming down her face. I beg of you, Great Mother, she said. Please, help me to save Jack. He is being held captive by my brother, Crowley, in hell, and I am powerless to rescue him on my own. The Great Mother considered Lilith's words for a moment, then nodded. I understand your pain, Lilith, she said. And I will help you to rescue Jack. But know this, it will not be easy, and there will be danger and sacrifice. Are you prepared to face these challenges? Lilith nodded, her heart racing. Yes, Great Mother, she said. I will do whatever it takes to save Jack. The Great Mother nodded, a determined look in her eyes. Very well, she said. I will gather an army of demons and lead you to Crowley's castle. We will do whatever it takes to rescue Jack and bring him home. Lilith couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had never expected to receive such help, and she knew that it came with great responsibility. But she was grateful for the Great Mother's assistance, and she knew that she had to do everything in her power to make the rescue a success. So, with the Great Mother and her army at her side, Lilith set out for Crowley's castle, determined to bring Jack home. The battle that ensued was fierce and brutal, with demons and minions clashing in a frenzy of blades and magic. But in the end, Lilith and the Great Mother emerged victorious, and Jack was freed from his captivity. As Jack and Lilith embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces, the Great Mother smiled. "You have proven your love to be strong and true," she said. "May it continue to guide you in all your endeavors." Lilith kissed Jack, her heart overflowing with gratitude and... Chapter 11, The Aftermath. Crowley's defeat was met with cheers and celebrations from the demon army. They had finally brought down their most hated enemy, and they knew that they had Lilith and Jack to thank for it. But as the celebrations died down, Crowley's death was met with a sense of unease. Lilith and Jack knew that they had made an enemy of one of the most powerful demons in the underworld, and they knew that they would have to be on their guard from now on. Despite this, they were grateful to the Great Mother for her help and support. They knew that without her, they would never have been able to rescue Jack and defeat Crowley. As they made their way back to the mortal realm, Jack and Lilith knew that they had a long and difficult road ahead of them. They would face many challenges as a demon and a mortal in love, but they were determined to face them together. As they settled into their new life, Jack and Lilith knew that they had each other, and that was all they needed. And as they looked into each other's eyes, they knew that their love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle that came their way. If you liked this video, please give it a like and share. Subscribe the channel for more amazing stories.